A special someone to the podium to address all of you, a person who possibly was like a shadow to late Imam Ashraff, a person who possibly sat through many of some meetings that were held during his strategizing, possibly a person, I suppose, perhaps, one of the people who misses him the most. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite to the podium his son, Aman Ashraff, to speak to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, President Maitripala Sirisena, Mr. Azath Salley, leader of the National Unity Alliance, Madam Ferial Ismail Ashraff, most venerable members of the clergy, honorable members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, dignitaries, guests, dear friends. Assalamu alaikum. Aiboan and Wanakam. It is with mixed emotions that I stand here today to say a few words about my late father. I say mixed because, needless to say, for myself and my family, his absence is a void that would never be filled. But at the same time, it is with a great sense of pride that I also find myself here today. It is said that most men are remembered merely by their deeds alone. But then in the fullness of time, those memories also fade away. It has been 20 years since the passing of late Imam Ashraff. And to see this August gathering here today, filled with so many faces from all walks of life, from other nations as well, it is but a small measure of the impact made by one singular human being on so many lives, and especially to those who are fortunate to have an exchange of words with him, to share his company, to learn from him, and more so. I must on this occasion extend on behalf of my family gratitude and profound thanks to the National Unity Alliance, I beg your pardon, and to Mr. Azath Salley, without whose initiative I don't think we would have an event of this nature. We wouldn't have seen an event of this nature. Many often ask me, what's it like to be the son of Imam Ashraff? It's not an easy question to answer, quite complex. But I feel what is unknown by most is that he was, to a great extent, an individual who was misunderstood by society. He was a person who strived with every ounce of his being to give a voice to the Muslims of Sri Lanka, irrespective of which ethnic denomination they represented. But in doing so, he was misunderstood as being a politician with selfish interests. He committed his life towards a united Sri Lanka with justice and liberty for all Sri Lankans. But again, he was misunderstood to be either a separatist or an extremist. But these hurdles, as it were, did not deter him from his cause. He was an individual who was committed and moved with frightening tenacity. We would often joke amongst ourselves that as a minister, when he goes for his walks at police park grounds, the speed of his walking is such that his personal security guards couldn't keep up with him. I mean, that was just an example of, the man. But his greatest attribute, I would imagine, was his ability to build bridges. He enjoyed with immense gratification the company of his family, near and dear and extended, and the company of his friends from both personal, political, and other spheres alike. And I know that if he were here today, nothing would stop him from sending a few of us outside now to arrange meals and, drinks and so on, and to provide a splendid feast for everyone here, because that was his style. He'd invite his friends over, give them a good meal, and spend as much time with them as possible. So, I do not wish to say more. I merely wish to conclude by thanking all of you, each and every one of you, for taking the time amidst your hectic schedules today, it's a working day, to spend this evening with us. And I wish you all a very pleasant evening once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Aman, for those few words. Ladies and gentlemen, we have something prepared for all of you to watch. So I invite you to please set your sights on the screens that are available. A video has been compiled of late MHM Ashraff.
On the 16th of September 2000, the political trajectory of Sri Lanka, and in particular that of the Sri Lankan Muslim community, was altered forever as news of the tragic and untimely death of one of Sri Lanka's political leaders spread across the nation. "23 years have passed, and neither MHM Ashraff's name nor his legacy have shown any signs of waning. They remain permanently etched in the hearts and minds of the people he led and inspired. Such is the impact of the individual upon the community and the people to whom he gave leadership and hope. Born in Sammanture and raised along the eastern shores of Sri Lanka in Kalmani, MHM Ashraff always demonstrated a keen interest in social issues and community well-being. His grasp of the pulse of the people and the issues that plagued the common man was a trait not uncommon amongst his family, particularly in matters where the law of the land appeared biased and at times oppressive. Thus, it was no surprise to those around him when he decided to read law and serve the nation as an attorney. However, despite his astute capabilities, the constant political upheavals of the period remained of grave concern to him. de-escalating issues between the state and the Sri Lankan Tamils were rapidly evolving into militancy in the east, with the Muslims caught in the crossfire or being drawn to militancy themselves. To that end, and in an effort to draw Muslim youth towards a more appeasing long-term solution, Ashraff founded the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress in 1981. Thus began a journey that would forever change the fabric of Sri Lankan politics and history. The SLMC under Ashraff's leadership soon established itself as the decisive voice of the Sri Lankan Muslims, at least as far as the East was concerned. It was a role that was not without criticism, particularly from within the larger Muslim community itself, who took issue with what they perceived to be a chauvinistic and communal political force. But this never dissuaded Ashraff, who championed the voice of all Muslim people whenever or wherever he saw injustice and oppression being wrought upon them.
Muslim Congress பொறுத்தவரை காலி மக்களுக்கு ஒன்றை சொல்லிக் கொள்ள விரும்புகின்றோம். காலி மக்கள் கஷ்டப்பட்ட போதும், காலி மக்கள் அடிக்கப்பட்ட போதெல்லாம் பாராளுமன்றத்திலே பேசுவதற்கு யாரும் இருக்கவில்லை. நாங்கள் அனாதைகளாக இருந்தோம். இனிமேல் அவ்வாறான ஒரு நிலை எங்களுக்கு ஏற்பட மாட்டாது. இன்ஷா அல்லாஹ் பிப்ரவரி மாதம் 15ஆம் தேதியின் பின்பு இந்த நாட்டிலே முஸ்லிம்கள் தலைநிமிர்ந்து வாழ முடியும்.
The SLMC contested the general elections as a recognized political party in 1989, winning 4 seats in parliament. By this time, Ashraff had formed firm alliances with numerous Tamil parties in the country, and the SLMC began to propagate itself as an independent voice of all Sri Lankans seeking justice. Even though the party affirmed its independent stance as members of the opposition, the SLMC and Ashraff in particular remained staunch allies of President Ranasinghe Premadasa and supported him during his presidential election, a gesture of goodwill that was never forgotten and subsequently led to the electoral cutoff point being reduced from 12.5% to 5% upon Ashraff's request, in order to ensure a higher percentage of proportional representation from the Muslim community at future elections. By 1994, Ashraff allied himself with Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, and the SLMC contested the general election as members of the People's Alliance, winning 7 seats in Parliament. Ashraff was appointed Minister for Ports, Shipping, Rehabilitation and Reconstruction, a portfolio he utilized to cement his legacy in Sri Lanka. The social empowerment of the people of the East and their recognition by the state as invaluable contributors to the fabric of Sri Lanka was a factor that concerned Ashraff immensely. He recognized that unless the standards of education and social empowerment were enhanced, change would be a long time coming.
It is therefore the education or the learning of the Muslim community that we are trying to shape today. We have a duty to ensure that this education, this knowledge, this learning, this wisdom that we derive will help to retain the individualistic character, the independence and the respect of the minority community in Sri Lanka.
With his newly acquired portfolio, he set about implementing a rapid development plan for Sri Lanka, both in political and social terms, which he executed concurrently. He recognized that the people of Sri Lanka were frustrated with the political options made available to them, most of which had outlived their purpose, or, like the SLMC, were built on ethnic foundations, thereby limiting their scope. Thus, he set about laying the foundations for the National Unity Alliance, a new choice, as he described it, based on the vision of a united Sri Lanka with equal rights and liberties for all Sri Lankans. He identified the village of Oluville in Ampara as the beacon for Sri Lanka's future and set about building what would soon become, as he envisioned, the focal point of illumination and development in the East in the years to come. Within a short span of merely 6 years, he was able to successfully usher in 2 major projects into fruition, namely the Oluville Fisheries Harbour and the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka. The Southeastern University of Sri Lanka was without a doubt his greatest contribution to the nation and its people. What began as merely a dream has today produced no less than 13,422 graduates, of which 11,402 have been internal and 2,020 external, all of whom are today blazing new trails in their respective streams. It is often said that one man can make a difference. For as a Muslim minority member, as a Sri Lankan, he didn't just make a difference. He raised the bar for minority politics and set a new standard that is yet to be met, let alone surpassed by a Sri Lankan Muslim politician. He demonstrated to Sri Lanka how a unified vision could transform a minority leader into a national one. His name and legacy is one that shall endure and live on through his deeds to the people for whom he pledged his service and his life. May Almighty Allah bless him with the highest abode in Jannah.
Inshallah, I have always said inshallah, God willing, and God will. God will. And I wish to quote from the Holy Quran. God has stated in the Holy Quran, a people's destiny will not be changed unless the people change their destiny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that gave you a glimpse of the man and the legacy, I suppose, he left behind. Leaders not only do what is right, but also choose to do what is right according to the times they live in order to give inspiration, to identify what is needed and ignite action. I suppose the video showed us a little bit of that.